Let's go ahead and talk real fast about Detroit. The last time they were relevant, really, really relevant, was when Barry Sanders was still in the backfield in 1993. That was the last time that they won a division title. And ever since then, they have been the mediocrity of Motown. They have been the dismal franchise of Detroit. They have not been able to produce consistently for years on end. Yeah, they had a number one wide receiver in Calvin Johnson, who took on the persona named Megatron. Yes, they had the number one overall pick, and they drafted a can't-miss prospect in Matthew Stafford, who was nothing short of a quality quarterback that absolutely gave his all to an organization that never gave back. They made countless dumb mistakes in hiring coaches, in bringing in personnels, in believing certain ways would work just by adding in one little piece. And it failed. And it failed, and it failed, and it failed. Really, the only great coach that they ever had in the last 30 years was Jim Caldwell. Caldwell took them to the playoffs, and he always finished above 500. And at the time, Bob Quinn, the GM, thought that wasn't good enough, so they parted ways to bring in Matt Patricia, and things went south fast. Things went so bad that it could not be corrected. Darius Slay, one of the best cornerbacks at the time, could not wait to leave Detroit because of who was calling the shots. Marty Morningwig, awful hire. Jim Schwartz, terrible hire. Never able to get it right. They never were able to find quality players in free agency. They allowed free agents to walk all the time. Guys like Ndamukong Suh. He was an enforcer in the trenches. He was a staple for this team. He could not wait to go down to South Beach and sign a long-term deal with the Miami Dolphins. That's what occurred for years with Detroit. But change is inevitable. And what's funny is that they hired a guy by the name of Dan Campbell that used to play for this team. And he was a bit of a klutz and a bit of a goofball and a muscle meathead dude. Anybody remember that first press conference? Talking about biting kneecaps and inflicting pain on the enemies of them. Basically, what you would hear is a rally cry from Braveheart. That's what you expected. And the team had to get built down to its studs. That's what needed to occur. See you later, Matthew Stafford. Best of luck in La La Land. We're going to bring in Jared Goff, a guy who everyone could not wait to count out. That's what they had. And last night, after the game, Dan Campbell said, I did not learn anything about this team. I just found out what I already knew. It just solidified what we knew internally. And it was great. Accept this win. Take this win. Now, make no mistake, there were mistakes a lot along the way. It was a far from perfect performance. Ben Johnson, the offensive coordinator, gets a premier weapon in a guy named Jahmyr Gibbs. They used the 12th overall pick on a running back, and they don't properly utilize him. One of his best assets was him as a receiver at Alabama and at Georgia Tech. He finished the game with a grand total of 2 catches for 18 yards. He had more carries on the ground than he did through the air. But he still can be an effective player. Josh Reynolds had a couple of bad drops. God bless Marvin Jones. He had some really bad drops in this game. Brock Wright was not perfect. Sam Laporta finally came on strong in the second half, but he was slow coming out of the jump. There was mixed play from Jared Goff. When they were in play action pass, dude looked like a top 10 passer in the NFL. 7-step drawback, good luck, good God bless. Here's the good news, though, if you are a Detroit Lions fan. It can get better. It really can. They were able to play exceptional defense at times, force their way into getting 3-and-outs from this Kansas City offense. They were able to eliminate the run game for the most part. 23 carries, only allowed 3.9 yards per play. Isaiah Pacheco was very limited. Clyde Edwards-Helaire was very limited. Patrick Mahomes, he's just Patrick Mahomes. You're going to have to let that athleticism be able to run. This is a building block for what this team can be. But it does solidify, in my opinion, that they are going to mess around and find their way into potentially the playoffs. It is a building block that this team might be able to make noise and prove that they are not just an NFC North contender, not just an NFC contender, but a Super Bowl contender. And you know what? Good on everybody in the building who doubted this team. Jared Goff was left to the wayside when Matthew Stafford was traded to the Rams. People kind of overglossed it. And there still were people that after this offseason said, you know what? Maybe if this team finds a way to bring in an Anthony Richardson, they can move off Jared Goff. We're not going to trust that Goff is our long-term guy. Dan Campbell was ridiculed for his comments when he was made the head coach. And assistant head coach, Eric Bieniemy is available. Why don't we go get this guy? No, you need to get a guy who has all about culture, who knows how to win, and has also seen how bad and how abysmal this team was. People forget he was a part of this organization. He was a part of this roster during the downside of Detroit, during the dismay in the Motor City. He was there for it. He watched it firsthand. He knows what goes on with the Lions. And he created a culture, and he created a community, and he created a class and a standard to where those players know every single time they strap on their helmets, they'll run through a wall for that guy. They absolutely will. The man drinks black coffee with double shots of espresso 2 times a day, and he keeps the same cool, calm, collective effort when calling plays, and he doesn't overstep his boundaries. And because of that, Detroit has created something promising. 800-224-2004. The thing that worried me about this game, the only thing that worried me about this game, was it was great how the season ended last year. They started off 1-6. They were abysmal. Oh, God, here we go once again. Detroit is still Detroiting. The Lions are still being the Lombard losers of the NFC. That's what everyone thought. And then they pick it up, and then they find a way to be in the postseason conversation. Maybe they'll punch their ticket to the playoffs with Jamal Williams breaking Barry Sanders' record for the most rushing touchdowns in franchise history. And they end the year with a massive win, ending Aaron Rodgers' tenure with the Green Bay Packers on an L rather than a W, keeping them out of the playoffs. Now, how does that sustain going into next season? How does that build off of what you did in years past? Because the teams that you saw last year is not the same team you see at the start of week 1. Players are added, players leaving free agency. You bring in new depth pieces. You go ahead and draft new guys. You don't know how they're going to act. Aiden Hutchinson, absolute stud last night on the defense. He was a motor that was relentlessly going nonstop. Jack Campbell, the linebacker that you drafted 18th overall. Yeah, he had some really nice plays, especially in coverage, an area I did not think was a strength of his coming out of Iowa. Brian Branch, the defensive back from Alabama, who I thought should have been their pick at number 12. Got a pick 6, ran it back, gave momentum and life back to this team when they needed it most. One play changed the course of the game, and it gave an opportunity for Detroit to make headlines, waves, and realize they mean business and they can go ahead and clinch this win. And they did. And it's awesome and it's great. How do you build off it is where you go from here. How do you learn from your mistakes? That way you don't have these type of conversations where maybe you're supposed to come out on top and it goes down to the wire. Maybe that's something you have to pay attention to, but I am glad that this team got a win. So for the Lions fans out there that need to hear this, let me give you a piece of advice. You've earned this. Go ahead and bask in the glory. Have a beer at 9 a.m. if you feel like it. Go ahead and call into radio shows across Motown saying that we're going to win the Super Bowl. Be elated that the team that for years was the laughingstock of the league is now a threat to winning the NFC because you earned it, because you did. This is the ragtag little rascals that absolutely people are rooting for. We talk about America's team being the Dallas Cowboys. No, America's team is built on the working class man, and that is the epitome of what Dan Campbell is. A working class individual who never was handed anything, had to go ahead and guarantee that he meant business, earn the respect of those in the locker room, inside the front office, and from the fan base. Jared Goff had to prove that he could reinvent himself and stay active as a quarterback. This was a glorified win for Detroit. The city of Detroit, as much as it was for the team, the city that is loyal to a team to their fan base, even when there were lackluster seasons, trepidation, minuscule play, you had to wear bags over your heads because of how bad this team was. You're one of the only few rosters that can actually say we can hang a banner 0-16 and things are changing for the better. This was a game that will forever live in infamy among Lions fans, not because they beat Patrick Mahomes, Not because that they were able to take down the defending champions, but because of everything that culminated in the offseason actually lived up to expectations. Will this team win the Super Bowl? I don't know. But right now, you can celebrate and live loud and proud. The Lions are here, and they're here to stay for good.
Guys, thank you so much for watching that video. Don't hit the X button yet. Make sure you hit subscribe to keep up with all of our daily content found on Just Saying It and anything else that we post on this channel. Bye.